guys, welcome to Rex Arthur. This is the Rex Arthur Show, and I'm so happy to have you here. We are doing River of Thoughts, Lava of Fikir. We now have a playlist for that, and it's where we're very philosophical rather than at least when we have our philosophical side, then when we have our sexual side, we deal with LGBTQ issues. That's the LGBTQ side, because philosophy is also connection. You see, sex is physical connection, and attaining knowledge is spiritual connection. It is it is or a sexual connection. But no, I don't want to use a sexual, because a sexual you can still be having sex, but you are withdrawn from sex. Um, I mean, you can, because sex is more physical than uh, a sexual behavior. Because when you touch people and you enjoy people, I mean, when you hug people, all of that is connection. It's still connection, and but it's not sexual, or if it is sexual, it is half sexual, because sex is penetration, and that is connection. When you penetrate the ass, and you penetrate the mouth, when you penetrate the vagina, all of that is the highest form of sex. But when you hug someone, or when you kiss somebody, and when you all of those things, that is also a form of sexual connection, but it is not penetrative sex. What you say, you call it non-penetrative sex. Yes, that's what happens to most of us. You can hug people. Yeah, that's non-penetrative sex. And because and the reason why they never call hugging and kissing um penetrative sex or sex is because orgasms don't really happen at that time. An orgasm basically means erection. And for a man, when you become erect, that is when you're heading to orgasm. So sometimes you can hug someone and kiss someone and you don't erect. So for some people, they're not really having sex. So sex is subjective to some people. Like asexual people, if you touch them, they feel like, do you want to have sex with me? Don't touch me. Or I don't want to be touched. Or I want to be touched. When I'm touched, I feel I'm sexually relieved. And it's also going to bring us to a philosophical question. Does it mean asexual people are actually very horny? Because if all they need is a touch for them to feel good, and they don't even need penetration, then it means they are more horny than those who need penetration, because those who need penetration feel, even if they hug somebody, they haven't had sex. Yeah, they have to penetrate, or they have to be penetrated for them to have sex. And then, but for the asexual person, if it's just hugged, just hugged and kissed, you may feel like, yeah, I really did have a nice time. So it's an interesting. Of course, this is not what I want to discuss. I think I'm going to do this aside. It's a thought that has just come. I was just trying to tell you that in knowledge, in what we do when we share information, and we open our hearts and our minds to information, we are actually involved in sex, but it is academic. You're connecting, discussions, conversation, intercourse. When you are in school, in university, they always say you're having intercourse with the lecturer. So you talk to the lecturer, and the lecturer talks to you. So talking is kind of like penetrative, and listening is kind of like receiving the dick or the finger or the tongue, or it is like being the active sexual partner. And then whereas receiver is the hole. You know, the ear is also is an orifice. It's also a hole for your information. And you can also penetrate your ear with your finger or with the earbud. And that is what is and apart from you penetrating the ear with your finger or the cotton bud, you can waves also penetrate your ear. They enter inside your ear. And that's what you listen to. Information. Like now when I'm talking to you, I'm penetrating you. I'm entering you through your ear. And so sometimes this is why many people, when you go to different places like schools and churches and religious centers and the news you watch, and you're someone who's always receptive. You're always receptive. You're always listening to things. Like it happens to me. I'm a very receptive person. I like listening. I like reading and all of that. So I'm being penetrated. I'm always having sex every time. There are different types of sex I'm having. You know, one time you're listening to the news. So sexual. I mean, the news is entering your ear and it goes and rests in your mind. And sometimes there's some news that makes you happy. So you get joyful. That's now the orgasm. There's some news that makes you angry. And also that's orgasm. It's because orgasm just means to swell. It's to swell, to contract and expand. Like the heart does that. And almost all the organs in the body do that, expanding and contracting. And now that is what you call, so we are doing connection right now. And I believe most philosophers tend to be very sexy or horny people because of they're always talking and they're always listening and they're always thinking. Because, you know, even after sex, especially for receptive persons, they like mulling and thinking about what happened. But if you are the giver, the moment doesn't stay. You don't really think about what you've done. You just I fucked. So what? I released. It's like a lecturer. Lecturers, when they after they're done teaching, they go. They don't know what you're thinking at the time he's giving the information or she is giving the information. So today, that's what happens. Just in case you didn't know. Now today I just want to do a small issue. There are two videos we'll do on language, and one of them is English language. I love the English language. That's the title of this video. Why do I love the English language? It's because number one, it's a very easy language in terms of most of what we do in the world is through English. And secondly, most countries were colonized by English people, by the people who had the English language. And thirdly, the largest nation, the most powerful nation in the world happens to be an English nation. That is America. Until now, China is rising, trying to overthrow America, but it still can't because America has very many areas it controls in the world, and that's why China is still not a threat. Not yet, but very soon it will be the big one. But where China has failed is they don't give you their language. You see, they don't give you their language. And secondly, human nature doesn't accept change that easily. And thirdly, Chinese or Mandarin is not an easy language. You have to cram all the information you have to do all the writing. So it will take mostly over 100 years for the world to really accept Mandarin as a language. And besides, the Chinese are not necessarily so imperialistic. They just want to gain resources from you. They don't want to they don't want to impose their culture on you. So that's China. But English, what happened with English is when the colonizers came, especially the English colonizers, the British, they colonized very big countries. One of the big countries they colonized was Nigeria, very heavily populated country. And so the advantage of colonizing big populated places is the language is going to be prominent in discussions and in life. And so imagine you have Nigeria, which has 100 million people, and they were colonized by Britain, an English country that has about 50 million people. Then you have countries like Uganda, Kenya, and a bit of Tanzania was taken over by the British, but they didn't learn English, so they're out of the question. And Rwanda now is part of the Commonwealth, so they are learning English. They are de-learning French, so they're now learning English. So that brings the population to about 250 million. Then you go to America, and it's 300 million who speak English, roughly around 300 million. That is 550 million, almost half a billion people are speaking English already. And I've not finished South Africa, I've not added even Zimbabwe, I've not added all of these other countries of the world. And and so already it's like 800 million. And then you find countries in Europe, people speak English even though they know their mother tongue. And that's like French and German and Italian and all of these. I'm so impressed with what is happening in the European Union. Most of the European leaders and the presidents in Europe are very good English speakers. And that is how I like that. I love the mood they're going into. You know, like Macron, he speaks very good English. For a French president, he's done a very good job. Now, why is English important? And English is very important, or one language is very important because it allows us to interact with each other. You see, when we are when we have one language, we can do work together very fast. We can share information very fast. We can do a lot of things. Remember the story of the Tower of Babel. The reason why the Tower of Babel story is out there is to explain to us the importance of language. That's the moral of the story of the Tower of Babel, is that had the Tower of Babel not really happened, people would be we humanity would be in another level right now. Another level. Why? Because we have one language. Can you imagine if the population of the world right now, 7 billion, 7 billion of us were speaking English? 7 billion was speaking English. It's done. The the trade, you would be everybody, half of the world will be billionaires because you are able to trade anywhere, you're able to talk to anybody, you're able to the laws are the same, everything is the same. Basically we will be one world. Right now we cannot be physically one world because we have different languages. But if we are to have one language, we are supposed to have in my view, English. And it's happening already. People who are going to school are learning English, and even though they still have their mother tongue. And that's a good way to build the world. As I've told you, European Union is one step away to, they should have acquired English. Actually, my view of what happened in EU, I think Britain shouldn't have left EU. They should have stayed and made it made it clear that in the EU setup, English is the language of communication for the whole of EU. Then, secondly, EU was supposed to they were supposed to teach all their nationals English, and all of their nationals English, so that by the year 2050 or 2030, but let's put it 2050, because by that time all the young people would be adults, the ones who are 18, or if you're 18 right now, that would mean the 18-year-olds born today, that would mean 2036. So by 2036, 2040, all the Europeans are speaking English. And yeah, if I was the EU, head of EU, or amongst the leaders of EU, I would be campaigning for English to become the lingua franca of Europe, so that people can they can trade easily, they can make laws easily, they can live in Britain easily. Because even if you're genetically different or nationally different, linguistically you're the same. So, and when there are some commonalities that are very important. One of the commonalities are linguistic commonalities, because most of what we do today is language. If you don't know English, you can't listen to what I'm saying. It's that simple. So you're already cut off. But if you know English, whether you're an Asian or a white person or a black person, you will understand what I'm saying. So that is what I'm trying to say would have happened or should happen in the EU. They should just forget their languages and throw them. Yes, that's my view. Or put them aside and insist on teaching English, make English the official language of the EU, not just for the leaders, but for the grassroots people, so that trade can happen and all of these things can happen. Now, of course, Britain left the EU because they were not willing to let go of their sovereignty. They had to make a decision. And I saw this going to happen. I didn't see Britain trying to lose its sovereignty. But going back to what happened, Brexit, I think they should have taken the Norway route. Norway is a different kind of member of the EU, and Norway also has a kingdom, just like Britain. So Britain's fear would be like they don't want to lose the British pound, but they want to be part of the EU. That's what they needed to do. Immigration, because many in the whole of EU, the one of the most prosperous or very nice countries is Britain. And so to cut out people from coming, many Bulgarians and all of these Lithuanians and all of these Eastern Europeans were going to Britain and are still in Britain. They go there. So the numbers was becoming too big, and even because of the Syrian crisis, what was happening was Syrians were running to Britain, and Britain had to stop that because they were feeling like now they were going to have a backlog in their system. So what they decided to do is cull the immigration, close the immigration, and then next thing they did Brexit of the EU. they now are controlling the borders according to their law. They want to control the borders according to their law, not according to EU law. Because EU law, what EU law to go to any part of EU, basically. And then you also know the Schengen area and all. Britain didn't be part of that system. And that's what happened. But I've given my view. English is a good language to unite Europe. They should teach it to everybody and let the children learn English right now, translating into German, translating into Italian. Of course, you can still translate for those people, because there are some people who are basically monolingual for life. They can never be bilingual. Yes, there are people like that. And you have to understand them and you have to accommodate them. So still translate the laws into that, but keep English as the official language. Now, when you come to Africa, as I've already told you, the most populous country is Nigeria, which is already speaking English. And so the Kenya, then you have Kenya, then you have Uganda and South Africa. All of these, the main countries in Africa are actually English speaking countries. So what should happen also, official languages in French colonies in Africa should also adopt English. But you see, the war is the French colonies or the French nations cannot accept that. That's why Cameroon is having problems. Cameroon is having problems because the French side is not seeing eye to eye with the English side of Cameroon. And that is why there is war. So these colonial battles are still there. I mean, okay, from colonialism, I prefer the French, because the French, when you learned French and when you knew French manners, you became French. But in the English colonialism, even if you knew English and what, they didn't really encourage you to go to Britain. They just want you can stay where they have colonized you, but don't come to where we are. That's what they say. But the French, all those who learned French, when they go to France, they can even get citizenship very easy. So when I look at the French system, it was called assimilation, and it was practiced by the French and Portuguese. I prefer that system. But as a language, I prefer English. English is easier than French, because French, reading it, I mean, when you see a word, it's the pronunciation is different from what you see. And English also has that, but there are few words. There are not as many words that need you to cram the pronunciation. So let's conclude this video by saying, I believe of course, English is the international language of the world. So basically, everybody who knows English is already an international citizen. And whether you know 50 other languages or 100 languages, that's okay. But as long as you know English, that's a pass for you. So it's this a video to tell people why I like English, and why I'm vouching for like EU to to obtain English as, or use English as its official language, whereby you go to Germany and you can speak English with ease. Of course you can. I was even seeing on TV Russia, the Russian activists, the opposition activists, and I was impressed. The Russians are speaking very clean English, and I was like, yeah, this is good. You can get into discussions with each other and about stuff, and it's not that you don't have to learn your Russian or keep your Russian. You can do whatever you want with it, but when you have one language uniting us, it's good. Can you imagine if China was an English-speaking nation right now? Oh my goodness, the trade that would happen in China. Actually, China would have bypassed the world right now. The number of Nigerians are still going to China, but they have to learn Mandarin to survive, or they stay with the rich Chinese who speak English. But just imagine China was an English speaking country. My goodness. You would find practically most of the world will want to live in China. So even China itself should find a way of how to integrate with the international community by giving their people English. But you know, this is all about national pride, which we are going to talk about in another video. We're going to talk about the difference between nationalism and statism. And it's going to be a very good discussion. So that's why I love English. It is able to unite us all. Many races know English, so I vouch it to be the international language of the world. Even though it is the international language of the world, it should be the international language of the world. It should be our return back to Babel. And now, once we are back, we can build things together, because with English now you have black physicists, you have white physicists, you have Indian physicists. Oh, I forgot India. Yes, India was colonized by Britain and the second largest country in the world, and that is a sign. That's why English is very important. Yes, because English has India. And even though not all Indians are speakers of English, majority, you can see, because of that, India is able to send people to America, which is an English speaking country. The, the engineers, the computer engineers, they're able to code in the English way, in the Western way, but English way to be precise, because they know English. And that's my view. But I'll talk about this as time goes on. This is just part one of why I love English. And of course, the wars that are involved in not knowing English. That's that. In fact, if the world knew English, there would be no war. The reason why we have national intelligence services, is because they don't have one language. And that's my view. I know it's a tall order, but that's my vision of the world. I always have visions, and I see a world whereby we speak one language. So that's it, guys. See you.